So in today's video I'm going to show you some different ways that I store my embroidery stash. Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. Welcome to my channel, Sarah Homfray Embroidery, a place for everything hand embroidery, from projects to stitches to loads and loads of stuff, so do go and check that out. So I've never really thought about doing a video on this subject because, to be honest, it's such an enormous subject to cover, and it depends on so many different variables: how much stash you've got, how much space you've got, whether you're on a budget, whether you want it to be portable, and the list goes on and on. But I do get lots of questions about this, and people go, how do you store your embroidery stuff? So I thought I will show you today how I do mine, and hopefully that will give you some ideas to do yours. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my channel members and my patrons. I put a call out to them asking for their ideas and for systems and ideas that they had to store their items, and to ask any questions that they wanted to ask. So we'll include any information that is relevant from them in this video, and I will put links in the description below the video to any products or any websites or information that they have given me that you might find useful. So the first thing that I want to say is that I can only show you how I organise my embroidery items, and I know lots of you out there have got your own ideas and your own systems and your own amazing labelling solutions, and I know that even Jessica, hi Jessica, has got a spreadsheet for all of hers, so she is super organised. And if you've got any ideas that don't come up in the video or I haven't mentioned that you find really useful, do put them in the comment below this video, the comment section, and share them with everyone else, and hopefully that will be helpful to somebody. Now, it's really important to find a system that works for you. It's no good buying the all singing, all dancing system if it just doesn't suit your personality or your situation or your environment. So it is really important to find a system that works for you. And I suggest starting with something simpler first and trying that. And then if you find you want to develop it later, that you can. Personally, I like simplicity, and I like something that doesn't take too long. I don't want to spend loads of time labelling and sorting and winding threads. For one thing, I have to make my living from hand embroidery, so that isn't really something I can spend my time doing. So and I just believe on a personal level I would just rather be stitching than organising anyway. If you love to organise though and you enjoy that process, then please, you don't need my permission, go ahead and fill your boots with that and organise to your heart's content. So I thought I would just go through some different categories and show you some different ways that I organise them, and some ideas from my channel members and patrons as well, and hopefully that you'll find that useful when you come to organise your embroidery storage. So the first thing that we're going to look at is threads. Every embroiderer has threads, right? And the first thing I'm going to say was a bit controversial last time I said it, and I upset a few people, and I never mean to do that. I didn't want to upset anybody. So I'm just reiterating again, this is just my ideas and my experience. You are absolutely free to do whatever way you want to do it and however you want to do it. But I just want to mention first, let me get the lid off, is these will be familiar to you. So these are the little cardboard bobbins that you can wrap your threads around. Now these are great if you have some thread ends left over, so if you've used lots of your skeins and you've got some little bits left and you lost the label, something like that, you can wrap them around these. You can write the number on the card if you know what the number is, and you can store them in one of these little boxes, and you can see all your colours nicely. And I know some of you store this and you write the numbers and you have them all in the right order for the colours and the colour numbers. But what I would say with this system is don't get new skeins and put new skeins on the cardboard bobbins. Now the reason I say that is, for one thing, it takes a lot of time, and people say, well, it doesn't take long to wrap a bobbin, but there's hundreds and hundreds of colours and the time does add up, and these are actually made so that you can pull them straight from the skein. I'll show you that quickly. So these stranded skeins, or floss, as you know them in the US, they have a system called a pull-through method, and all you need to do is you need to find the end of it, and it's usually that end there that comes from the middle of the skein, and you pull that through like so, and you get the right length of thread to use, and it doesn't mess up your skein. They come like that, ready for you to use. I'm not going to go into this too much detail because we've got a really good video on this. You can check that out up in the corner, all about stranded skeins and how to store them and how to use them, and how to strand the threads, and loads of information on that, so do check that one out. But they're made ready for you to do that, and I think it's best to keep them in this format because this is best for them. If you wrap them around the little cardboard bobbins, they do get creases every time you wrap it around, especially if you're right near the cardboard bobbin, and you get this little zigzag and you get creases in your thread, which isn't really great. So I would say use the cardboard bobbins if you've got some leftover bits or you want to make kits up or something like that. They're useful. Otherwise, keep your thread in the skein ready to use like that. Now I tend to keep all my skeins in a box like this. It's got some drawers in it. And if I just pull one out, you can see, and I keep them by colour order. So I've got all my greens in this one. I'll have one for reds and one for yellows and one for blues. I've got another one of these on the shelf, and I keep them, as you can see, all in the skeins. Now, if you want to keep them together for a project, you can do that. You can just get one of these rings like so. These are little bookbinding rings, and you can thread them onto that and you can use them for your project. I'll just hold it out there as well so you can see it there. And you can keep your colours together for your different projects, and you can rearrange these if you want to. So if you want to have them in colour order, you can, or you can have the whole set for the whole project. And again, you're just leaving them in that condition that they come in, and you're not wrapping them all around the thread. And then if I want to choose my colours, I actually use a thread card like so, and I can choose them off this. I can have a look through my drawers and see if I've got those colours. If I haven't, I can go and buy them, or I've usually got something in there that will do instead. It doesn't have to be the exact one. So I tend to do it like that, tend to choose them from this, and then I'll pick them out of the drawer and use them that way. And then because they're in drawers, out of the way, because they're in drawers, I don't have to take the whole box off the shelf. I can just pull one drawer out at a time. So this box stays on the shelf, and I can just pull out the drawer that I need for the project that I'm working on. So easy to keep this nice and neat and tidy. I can clearly see what's in there, and it's all dust free because the drawers fit nice and tightly. They're covered up and they're not going to get dusty. So that's great if you've got stranded cotton or floss. Great way to keep them because you can just pull it out and use one. Sometimes threads come in a slightly different format. So they might come in this format, which is basically a skein. So it's just wrapped round and round and round, and then you can't pull it out. It doesn't have that pull through method that the stranded cotton has. So the way to deal with those is to take the labels off, pull it out into the hank, cut through it, and then you can braid that or plait it depending on what country you're in, and then you can just take one out of the end like so, ready to use. And then this stays in as much of the original format as possible. You can put the label back onto this if you want to as well, so it's not being creased around one of those cardboard bobbins. You haven't got to spend time doing anything with it. It's there ready to use, and this will keep it in good condition. Now, having said that about cardboard bobbins, some things do come on large cardboard bobbins. Needle pointers will be familiar with this one. So they do come on this. They're not my personal favourite, but leave them on there if they come in this format. I think generally anything that you get, keep in that format that it comes, and then it will be in the best condition. So leave those ones on the cardboard. Sometimes they come in little boxes. This is a chenille. You'll notice this isn't wrapped around anything. This is quite delicate. So this is just come in a cardboard box. This is a versoir, so I'm just going to leave it in the box until it's ready to use. This one comes on a reel. This is much more my preferred method of storing things. If you keep some old reels, if you use up cotton threads and things like that, keep the reels and wrap them around the reels instead. It's much better on the thread. So that one's just come on a reel. No need to do anything like that. Just keep it in the form that it comes in. I just wanted to show you this tin because this is all the leftovers. So it's all very well having nice new skeins and they're all in a nice box and they've still got the labels on. And if the labels fall off, you can put them around those cardboard bobbins. But I tend to throw all my ends in here. I'm going to show you. It's not very neat. There we go. And then these are just the little ends of things, or the things that have lost their labels, and I just chuck them all in a tin. I found this tin in a shop for half price. It had a big dent in it, and I thought, well, it's still nice. This will be really good. And I keep this tin handy if I want to do some sampling, or I just want to try something out. I don't want to break into a new skein of thread or something. I can just dive in here. There's loads of colours in here, and I can just pull out a little bit, pull out a colour that I want to use, and I can take it out of there. I'm not worried about what colour number it is or anything like that. I just think, oh, I want to try a stitch and grab a thread and do that. So I keep those in that tin. So do keep an eye out for interesting things that might make good containers. I just want to talk a little bit about the difference between shelves and boxes. I have both and I use both. We have had some requests about small storage spaces. What do I do if I haven't got a lot of space? So I would suggest drawers are probably better for a larger space where you've got place to put your drawers. And if you've only got a small area to store your embroidery items, I think boxes are probably better. If you have too many boxes and they stack up on top of each other and you want the thing that's in the bottom, you've got to move all the other boxes out of the way. So if you have more storage space, maybe think about drawers, and if you have smaller one, maybe boxes. I'll show you these boxes here. Put them under this camera. So in this one, I keep my white work threads. Now, it is important that you keep these things covered. White work threads obviously get dirty quite easily, so try and keep them in something that you can seal if possible. So I've got my white work threads in here, and I've got some nice space down the bottom here that just happens to fit my silk threads as well. I'll talk a little bit more about specialty threads in a second. So I've just got my silk and my white work threads in those, and then this seals nicely as well. Nice tight seal on that, nothing's going to get in there and eat my silk threads. And the advantage of these is that you can see through them and you can instantly see what's in there. So some of the other boxes look really pretty and they've got pretty patterns on, but I do think sometimes just a practical clear box is much better because you can just see what's in it without having to open it. I've got another one here for my perlé threads. Open that without them all falling out. So I've got my skeins here. I've laid them out flat again. They're not wrapped around those cardboard bobbins, and I've braided those ones like I mentioned before, so I can just pull one out of the top if I need it. So the flat skeins are there, and then I've got the reels and the balls in this end here. And if I want any perlé threads, all of my perlé threads are in one place. I can grab that box and I know that it will be in there. When I asked my channel members and my patrons, a lot of you in the States were talking about art bin storage and how good that was. So do check that out if you're in the States and you don't know about that. I'll put a link to that below the description. If you're not in the States and you can't get those, just have a look around in other places. So I just want to show you a few that I have found. This was actually a stationery box in a stationer's in Smith's, if you know what Smith's is, and it just had pens and pencils in it. And I used this when for a whole year in the studio at the Royal School of Needlework, and we had to pack everything away again at the end of the day. And I saw this and it's clear, so I can see in it and see what's inside it, and it was just really good. It's got a little handle on it and it went in my little locker thing that we had, and we could just put everything in and put it away easily. And everybody liked this and they all rushed out to Smith's and got one, so we all had the same boxes, which was quite funny. I had to label them, but they've got a little tray in the top for the small stuff and then a bigger room in the bottom for the larger stuff. It is worth having smaller storage for smaller things, and that might sound obvious, but you can, it's not floating around in the bottom of your large box. So it is a good idea to have some. So do have a look around. You may not necessarily need to look for embroidery storage, maybe something else will work instead. I actually found this one in Jonathan's man cave. And it's empty, so I might forget to put it back because it'd be really good for my beads. But just again, have a look around and see what you can find. If you're in the UK, you could try the Range, you could try the Works, there's Hobbycraft as well. US, you've got Michael's and Joann's and the Dollar Store or the Pound Shop or any place like that, and see what you can find. This one is really good because it's got a lid in the top with the tray. You can lift out. It's got little dividers in it as well, so you can change the size of it as well. Little lid for the small stuff, and then it's got drawers that pull out too, so you've got everything going on here, and it's got a carrying handle as well. So if you want to be portable, and that's important, something like this might be good. This is also great for small storage spaces. We've mentioned that already. You can get a lot of different things in here. If you're doing embroidery, you've got needles, maybe beads and buttons and lots of little sort of fiddly stuff. So something with lots of small compartments is good to keep it all in one place, but to keep it nice and tidy. I've also got lots of these. These are just large plastic boxes, really, again see-through. I've labelled them on the front, and I've got all these on a shelf with all my sort of odds and ends in. So this one has actually got miscellaneous embroidery threads. So I've got my perlés together, my silks together, my stranded cottons together. This is everything that doesn't fit into any of those, and it's quite neat and tidy in here. But I've got a bag full of weird stuff. This was going to be for a video, which I might still make, so keep an eye out for that one. And You don't have to keep it in plastic bags. These organza bags are quite good. You sort of need to let your threads breathe a little bit. Sealed boxes are great, but if you just get any moisture in there, you've got problems. So it is quite good to put things in maybe organza bags instead of plastic bags. And then I've just, having said that, these plastic bags. And then I've just got them separated. Those are silks. These are Angora fabrics. I've got hand-dyed ones that I've dyed myself, and then just all sorts of stuff in there. Again, it's all laid out in the form that it came in. I haven't done anything with it. I haven't wrapped it, I haven't taken it out. I can see where it's come from. I can see what it's made of. Some of them have got washing instructions on them as well, which could be useful. So I just keep them in the form they're in. And then if I want to have a little play or an experiment or think, oh, what exciting thread have I got I can try, I know that I can look in the miscellaneous box. I wanted to show you this one as something that is a good idea but doesn't particularly work for me. You might like this, and I obviously thought it was a good idea because I bought quite a few of these, and this is another box, but this is specifically for skeins. Now the first thing you will notice is it's got a colour, it's not see-through, so you've got to open it to see what's inside, which was part of the problem. I've got, I think, 5 of these, and unless I label them all with the colours, I don't know what's inside, but I'll get it out and show you what's in there. So it comes with lots of trays, and each tray has got room for one skein of thread, and you can see that here. I've got them all laid out nicely, so in that format that they come in again that I mentioned before, and you can lift a layer off and you've got another layer underneath, and you can put them all in the order that you want, and you could have one of every colour. And I always thought that was an appealing idea, have one of every skein, and then I know I've got all of the colours, and when I've used that one I can just replace that colour. That was my plan, but it didn't get that far. There's quite a few, and they stack really nicely, and they've got a lid on the top as well, so you can keep that top one nice and tight. So we've got everything covered up. There's no, it's not exposed to the air or the dust or anything like that. And then it came with loads of labels as well. It didn't sort of said, it just said, oh, you've got lots of labels, you can keep it all neat and tidy, but I'm not too sure where you even stick the label. I think there's a little bit at the front, but anyway, I didn't stick any labels. It was just far too labour intensive, and to be honest, they go on the shelf, and because I can't see them, they're out of sight and out of mind, and I never use them. I just dive into my tin or dive into my green boxes as well, and I don't use them. So it seemed like a good idea at the time, but I may reconsider this, and I may pass them on to somebody who might find them useful because I'm not actually using them. I just want to mention specialist threads at this point. I did mention it briefly earlier, but you do need to think about some different threads. So silk threads and wool threads, they can both be eaten by moths. So do make sure that they are protected and they're not out in the open. If you do knitting and crochet, the same for that. Keep your wool in something sealed so they don't get to it. That has happened to me, and I came to use it and all disintegrated. If you should find that that's happened, put them all in a plastic bag, stick them in the freezer. That will kill any moths and any eggs in it, and they won't eat it anymore. And then discard what's not usable, and then make sure you keep those sealed up somewhere that the moths can't get to them. The other thing I want to mention at this point is gold threads as well. It's important that you protect your gold threads, because if they've got any kind of gold content in them, it's not 100% gold. The other metals in it will tarnish and they will go a funny brown and black colour. I've got a tin here. I'm going to talk about tins in a second. It's good to keep your gold threads in a tin, but I've also got mine in these acid-free bags. You can see these here. Some of them are labelled, some of them I've just written on in pencil. If they come in a bag like they do from our shop, keep them in the bag. The labels will unpeel and stick back again. The acid-free bags will protect the metals in the bag, so it's really important you keep them in those, and put them in a metal tin as well if you can. And if you put them in plastic bags, I hope you can see that this is what happens to it. Can you see how black and brown they've gone, which can be quite a nice effect if you want something like that, but most people don't intend their gold to go that colour. So if you put it in a plastic bag, that is what will happen to it. So no plastic bags, acid-free bags in a metal tin. If you don't have acid-free bags, and you've got some tissue paper, you could wrap them in some tissue paper as well, or metal foil, aluminium foil will do the same job as well. Make sure it's sealed and the air doesn't get in, and that will help your gold thread stay nice and shiny. I also want to mention as well, if you're on a bit of a budget, some of these solutions can end up costing quite a lot of money. They look fantastic, and I know there's like whole pieces of furniture you can buy to store things in look wonderful, but they aren't cheap. So if you're on a budget, have a little look around. It can be really fun to find tins. This is port. from Marks and Spencer's. And people in the UK will know that. So if Christmas is coming up and you get given a box of biscuits, a tin of biscuits, keep the tin. You can find some really nice things. You can look in charity shops and goodwill shops and flea markets and places like that and see what you can find to store your goods in. It can be fun trying to find nice things for it, and some things are the perfect fit. This is a shortbread biscuit tin. This has got all my metallic threads in this one. I keep all of those in here. There's probably not any metallic content in a lot of them, but if there is, again, it's in the metallic tin. It will help to protect it as well. So just have a fun hunting around and see what you can find. I don't even know what was in this one, but it's a really nice, pretty box, cardboard box. You can't see in it, but it looks pretty. And then I've got all my sewing threads, Gutterman Sew All threads in there, and I can just grab that box if I need them, and I know the threads in there. So I think we've had a fairly comprehensive look at threads. Let's have a little look at fabrics now. Now I can't get them all out on the table because they're in big baskets. So basically I have 3 baskets for my fabrics. I've got a large and a medium and a small one. So the large ones are big pieces that I've got for dressmaking one day when I might get round to some of that. I've got a medium one for smaller pieces. I've got one just for my counted fabrics, so my Aidas and my linens and things like that. So they're all kept together. That is important. That's a theme that comes up again and again. Keep the same things in one place. And I just want to show you this one because this is my little basket. This is my quilting cottons and pretty pattern cottons and such like there, and I've got those in here. And you will notice with this how I have stored them. Now again, if you've got limited space, it's how you put your fabrics in your baskets or your boxes that's going to make the difference. This was overflowing. The lid wouldn't shut. It was all overflowing, and I had to tidy up and I rolled them up and I put them all in like this, and I've actually got space to spare in here. So do just take the time to store it properly. And the great thing about this method is that I can just take it out and I don't disturb everything else. If you fold it up neatly and stack it on top of each other, you've got to rifle through it to find the one that's underneath, and that's when it gets in a mess, and that's when the lid doesn't fit. When you do it this way, you can see everything you've got. You can see the colour. You can pull out the one that you want and you can use that, and then when you're finished you can roll it up and stick it back in the space. So this will make a massive difference if you're short on space or if you find that your fabrics are getting in a bit of a mess. So Sally, who is one of my patrons, hi Sally, thanks for this idea, this is brilliant. So if you've got some embroidery fabrics, so I'm just going to use the ones from our shop, for example. So if you've got some linens, they come like this, or you've got some fat quarters or something like this, what Sally does is she gets them out of the packet, she irons them all and gets them prepared, and then she hangs them on a coat hanger with the little clips on and puts them on a rail, and then they're all prepared and ready to go. So you haven't got to worry about it creasing and then getting out, oh, I've got to get the creases out. Do all that in one go, hang them up and they're ready to use. So brilliant idea, Sally, thanks for that one. Okay, so let's talk about kits. Now, I know this is probably a massive problem for lots of people who love embroidery and sewing and stuff like that. We all like to buy loads of kits, and I'm no exception to that. I am going to include in that unfinished projects because I probably don't buy too many kits compared to how many unfinished projects I've got. I like to design my own and do my own, and I'll have a great idea and I'll start it, and then I'll have another great idea and that one doesn't get finished. So let's talk about how you can keep your kits under control. Now, my best advice for this is to keep them all in one place. We've talked about that already, about keeping things together. So you haven't got some kits in the living room, you haven't got some more floating around in a craft room or wherever else they might be. If you've got them all in one place, you can assess what the problem might be and whether you need to do something about it. Now, this is the bag that I have got down the side of my sofa. We'll get to that in a second as well. And this is mainly all my bought kits. There's a couple in here that I've done myself, and I sort of decided I'd fill this up, and if this gets to overflowing point, then it's time to do something about it. So they're all in here. Some of them are started and some of them aren't, and I'm going to make a very concerted effort in January, I think, once the year is finished, to go through everything and to sort it and to decide if I want to keep it. Am I going to finish it? Am I going to start it? Do I really love it and think I've absolutely got to make this, or do I think, you know what, it was really fun buying it, I don't need it anymore, I'm going to pass it on to somebody else who might like it instead. So at this point, I would like to mention this book. This is Marie Kondo. You may have heard her or not. If you haven't, she's a Japanese tidying guru. There's nothing about tidying this woman doesn't know. And she's got a really good method, and I've tried it in the house and a little bit in the studio. I've started the process and I think it's really, really good. And there's a couple of things that she says, though, that I think will help. One of them we have touched on already. So that was the rolling the fabric up in the baskets. That's one of her methods. She suggests you do it with your clothes, so you don't have to pull all your clothes out to find the one underneath. But I applied that to fabric. So if you roll it up and you put it all together, so it's standing upright so you can see what you need, it's easy to pull out just the thing that you need and not all the other stuff as well. So that's one of her ideas. And then the other one is to not hang on to everything if you don't really want it. She says, does it spark joy? So you hold this thing in your hand, it asks you, does it spark joy? Do you really want it? But you could apply that to the kits as well. As I've just mentioned, are you going to finish it realistically? Are you going to start it? There's lots of things in here that I know I'm not really going to. I love them when I look at them, but I've only got so many hours in my day, and am I really going to get it finished? So I am going to have a good look at that and see if there's anything that I can pass on to someone else. Now, if you are a serial kit buyer and you're gasping when I say that I'm going to get rid of some of my unfinished kits, it's absolutely fine. You can keep all the kits you want. Maybe a way to deal with them, though, would be to finish 2 for every one that you buy. So you think I can buy a new one when I finish 2 of them, and then that way the kit pile should go down eventually, and that'll give you room to buy some more. Now, before we leave the kit section of this part of the video, I do just want to mention as well about things down the side of the sofa. Now, Karen has asked me about this. I've mentioned it briefly already. That bag of kits is down the side of my sofa, and I think, oh yeah, I'll sit there in the evening and I'll get a kit out, and that doesn't happen. It can be a huge problem, and I have a space outside of the house. I have this studio where I work, so all my sewing stuff's in here, but sometimes I go in the house and I want to do it in the evening, and I end up with this stuff spread out all over the place. And one thing Marie Kondo says is you keep it in the same place. It has a home and it goes back in the home. So you need to be super duper organised. So if you have small spaces, you need to be extra organised. Make sure that when you finished a project, you put things back where their home is. So if you've got a space for everything, there's a space for it to go back. So make sure you sort of just be a bit more disciplined about that and put that back where it came from. Now, I do have a sewing kit for the house. I got lots of sewing stuff in the studio, but I have one separately for the house, and that's this one here. I have done a video about this one, so I'm not going to go over what's in this. You can check that out up here if you want to see what's in my sewing bag. But it is it's a really good one. It was from an airline, Sky Team. Is that Delta? Somebody will tell me what that is. And this was a little bag they gave you when your luggage doesn't get to where you are and you haven't got anything. They give you a little bag, and it's brilliant. Whoever invented this is a genius, because it's got a little bit that you can take out, so you can have an even smaller case. So this is my house sewing kit. So I've got kind of double of everything. I've got needles in there, I've got scissors in there, tape measures, whatever else I need, and this sits in the house with me, and that's everything I should need equipment wise to work. And then I have the same out here as well. So you could consider doing that if you do work down in your living room in front of the TV and you've got stuff down by the side of the sofa. Maybe have a little separate storage thing just for the things that you use in the house. So this is a good time to mention small stuff and how you store small stuff. You see my little needle case with everything in it. If that's a bit too small, you might want to consider something like this. It's a bit heavy. So a sewing box or a sewing bag, or whatever form that needs to take, but specifically for your sewing stuff. So this one stays in the studio. It's got a little top you can open with a tray that comes out. So I've got larger stuff in the bottom. I've got pins and zips and all sorts of stuff. I don't even know what some of that is, to be honest. And then the small stuff in the top. So I've got my needle case for my needles. I've got scissors in here. I've got tape measures. I've got a screwdriver for my embroidery frames, tambour hook, drawing pins, not drawing pins, safety pins, just so loads of little stuff like that. So you can keep the small stuff in the top and the larger stuff in the bottom, and that should be everything sewing related in there. So if I need some equipment in the studio, that's a larger one that's got more stuff in it that I can delve into when I want to. It's got handles as well if I need to be portable. there for a second because I just want to mention this as well. Put small things in small cases. This is another Marie Kondo thing. So she says with your drawers in your house, if you've got a big drawer, divide it up into smaller drawers. Basically, you can put your socks in one and your t-shirts in a larger bit and things like that. So you can apply that to embroidery as well. So these little sequins here, put them there so you can see them. So they've got a little compartment for each one. You can have a few of those with beads in as well, and then I can put all of those together in another box if I wanted to, so that you're sort of containing it in the size that it's meant to be. It's not taking up extra space basically. Again, it's clear so you can see in it and see what it is without having to open it. So do consider small storage containers for small things. Okay, let's talk about embroidery frames. So the weirdest, most annoying thing to have to store because they're funny shape. So I have got a box for my stretcher bar frames. If you use stretcher bar frames, they're just in another cardboard box. They're quite a big box and they all fit in there. And they come apart. So if you're not using a frame that comes apart, I suggest you take it apart and you store it apart because they take up a lot of space if you keep them together. So it's much better to take them apart and they're ready to choose which sizes you want next time. Obviously you can't do that with ring frames and they're awkward size, so I've just got mine in a basket. They can stick out the top, so the big ones will go in and then the little ones, just tie those together so that they're at least all kept together in one place and they go in the end. So obviously you can't store anything on top of that, but they are a weird thing to store. If you've got any better ideas for storing hoops, I know I've seen people put hooks on the wall and they can hang them off the wall, so if you've got wall space you could do it that way instead. And I just want to mention big frames. This is a 24-inch slate frame. We use 3 of these on the apprenticeship. They're 24 inches by 24 inches if you have it at the maximum size, so they are huge. We had 3 of them, and again, when you're not using it, collapse it down. It came in this cardboard tube. I've kept this ever since I've had it, and they're really good. They just go back in the cardboard tube, disassemble it, put them back, and they get stacked up against the wall, ready for when I do need them. So I want to mention finished embroideries at this point, and I know people say, oh, you should be putting them on the wall, and yes, if you've got room, absolutely they should be on the wall where you can enjoy them and other people can enjoy them as well. I do have over 300 pieces of embroidery that I have designed and made myself. I do keep a record of everything I made, and I know it's over 300 now. They can't go on the wall because we don't have a mansion, unfortunately. So what I do with those is I store those quite carefully. So I've got one here. My critters on canvas one, and I make these little bags for them. So this is made out of acid-free tissue paper to protect it, and rather than just wrap it up, because if you want to get it out that's a bit awkward, I make a little bag for it. So just slots out the top like that, and fits in that protective bag, and then I label the bag up with what the project is, and then these will all stand upright next to each other, and I've got a storage system that I put them in. So I've got one from Ikea. It's got 4 drawers in it. Well, they actually got baskets in. You can choose whether you have drawers or baskets. So they've got baskets in the 4, and I keep them in those. And because they're all upright, I can easily get the one I want and pull it out without again having to rummage around to the bottom to find it. So if you can't hang them on a wall for any reason, then do consider just wrapping them up in some acid-free tissue paper just to protect them. So along with your own embroideries, you might have a collection of vintage embroideries or pieces that have been passed down through the family to you. So again, treat those in the same way. I have a larger box for those. It's probably about this big, as big as the table almost, and I can keep those flat. So again, I wrap them in acid-free tissue paper. Make sure you keep them out of the sunlight and somewhere that's not damp. And then wrap them in the acid-free tissue paper in a sealed box. You can buy special archivist boxes. They're cardboard boxes. They're acid-free, 100% acid-free if you have something that's really delicate and you really want to look after. But otherwise, you can wrap them in the tissue paper just to help protect them. Now, I've mentioned that I have over 300 designs that I've made. Each one of those has got paperwork with it. So I've got lots of these on my shelf. And you could not just use those for your own pieces. If you've got instructions that have come out for kit and you think, well, I'd like to keep the instructions, I might want to make it again, you could take all the packaging, get rid of all the packaging, and you could keep them in a folder like this. So just open it so you can see. So I just keep each one in a plastic folder in there, and I've got usually what it is on the front so I can clearly see which design it is. I just put them all in a ring binder, and I know where they all are if I want to dive in there and I need my instructions again. Books is another thing that people have a lot of, and do consider that when you're thinking about keeping everything neat and tidy, because the books can be a big problem. So I keep my embroidery books separate from my other books. Now Marie wouldn't approve of that because she says keep all your books in one place, but I keep those in my studio. My other books are in the house. They're completely separate. If you don't have two buildings, you have got a small space, just maybe consider putting them to one end of a shelf or a shelf of their own, just to keep those ones separate so they don't get mixed up. That way you can clearly see what you've got and you're not rummaging around going, where was that book on such and such, because it's filed alphabetically and you can't remember what it's called. So keep your embroidery books together. I have one bookcase in my studio, for it's not a very big bookcase. I'll put a picture up of it here because obviously I can't lift it up and show you. And basically when that shelf is full, I have to have a cull. I've imposed that on myself just because I don't use books too often. I guess you can easily get them from the library. There's a lot of information online. So I do have a minimal amount of books. I do know people have got lots and lots of books and they love books, and that's absolutely great. But I have the one shelf, everything goes on there. When there's too many, something has to go, basically. If you've got lots and lots of space and you love books, that's absolutely wonderful. Please invite us round so we can have a look at your book collection. I should have also mentioned magazines come into that as well. Probably a bigger problem than books, really. We all love to rifle through a magazine. I've got loads and loads of them and I keep them in wooden magazine boxes. These ones come from Ikea. They're really sturdy. Magazines can be super heavy as well. You can put them on the shelf next to each other. But I don't really look at them, to be honest. I don't go through my magazines. Can't remember the last time I went through my magazines, so I may actually consider getting rid of all of these magazines completely. I'm not even going to go through and look at them because then you get distracted. Oh, I might keep this for a rainy day and I know I'm not going to look at it, so I'm going to get rid of them all. I do want to get rid of them to somewhere who would appreciate and would use them. I don't want to just chuck them in the bin. So if you are in Nottinghamshire in England and you're somewhere near me and you could make use of them or know somewhere they can go, or a school or a college or something, to get in touch with me, because I've got loads to pass on, and then I've got a shelf that I can put some other stuff on. Okay, we're nearly there, I think. I don't have much left in my studio that's not come off the shelf to show you, but I just want to tackle those really annoying bits at the end. And this, in Marie Kondo's book, is the last category. She tackles all those miscellaneous things that you just don't know what else to do with. I'm lucky I've got a bit more space in my studio to put these things, and because I'm teaching it and because I'm doing it every day, I've probably got maybe a little bit more stuff than the average stitcher. You may be looking at my stuff and going, that's nothing. I don't know where I sit in how much stuff I've got, but then I just have one of these boxes. So you've seen these before for my threads, and I have one for different categories. So this one is small fabric pieces, so any little thing that can't be made into something, but it can be good for a plique or good for little sewing projects or something. You can't fold it up and roll it up and put it in the basket, it's too small for that. So these go in here, they're just layered up. I can have a rifle through these. There's a bag of smaller pieces still on the top. So remember what we said about making smaller compartments within compartments. I've got the bigger of the small pieces, if that makes sense, on the bottom, and then the smaller of the small pieces in a bag on the top, and that's labelled, and I can just pull that off the shelf and those are ready to use. And then I've got loads of these actually, but I just thought I'd show you these two. This one is for my lace as well, so this is separated into different kinds of lace as well. So if I want any lace, it's in the lace box. If you don't have that much lace, you could do all of this in one box, but just separate it somehow, either with the organza bags or some plastic bags or some other boxes inside, and just keep those separate so you can dive in and grab what you need. So I think that's just about it. I've just remembered this one up here, which I haven't mentioned yet. I got that from The Works, if you're in the UK, cheap crafty bookshop type place, and it's just got little pockets in it, and this actually sits on the wall by my computer, and it's got some scissors in it, and some tweezers and some, I don't even know what some of this is, so some little bits of paperwork that I can just keep in. So it doesn't have to be a box that sits on a shelf. If you've got wall space, you can utilise wall space. You can make one of these quite easily as well, especially if you're a quilter or something like that. So do consider what other kinds of space you've got. Maybe you could hang something from the ceiling. I have seen people do that before as well and use up your wall space. So I think that's it, folks. That's all me out of ideas. I'm sure you've got lots more ideas. Again, do let me know in the description below if you've got something that you think is really great. I know there's some super systems out there. I'd like to thank my channel members and my patrons for joining in as well. If you're interested in becoming a channel member or patron and supporting us, there's information in the description below. That would be great to have you on board. Thank you, everybody. But thank you to everyone else as well, just for watching and giving us a thumbs up and liking everything, and your comments as well. It all helps to support our channel.